Hey, Phil, while you're doing that, I'm on the Hideout website and I'm not seeing where the YouTube link is posted. I'm sure it's here. I'm just not seeing it.
You have to go to the meetings page. I keep asking her to put it on the front page, but it's
Eh,
not happening.
All right.
So, but I'll get her to try and do that again. I just didn't get to that today.
Okay, we're live on YouTube.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry?
Yeah, we're live on YouTube.
We're live on
Did
YouTube.
you? Okay,
Great,
thanks,
thanks.
Alicia.
Alicia, are you here?
I'm just checking the list. 2, 3.
Yeah.
So we need a few more council members.
We have Carol, Bob,
Basically, Chris and
Chris is
Yeah.
here, and Jerry's here, and Ralph. They're all here. I'm pretty sure we have everybody.
we can start recording.
Mayor, I'm getting 2 audio feeds, so I'm guessing your YouTube is playing back at us.
And we have Carol, Bob.
I think I've solved that. I was just making sure that we're still good on YouTube. Okay. All right, let's get started. Let me start recording. Resume recording. Okay. So this is the Hideout Town Council meeting, special meeting of October 14th, 2020. This meeting is an electronic meeting without an anchor location pursuant to the September 24th, 2020 termination letter, which I'm about to show. So, are we seeing that, I hope?
We are.
Okay, thank you. Determination regarding conducting Town of Hideout public meetings without an anchor location. The mayor of the Town of Hideout hereby determines that conducting a meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location pursuant to Utah Code Section 52-4-207 sub 4 and Hideout Town Ordinance 2020-03. The facts upon which the determination is based include the percent number of positive COVID-19 cases in Utah has been over 13% of those tested since September 15th. 7-day average of cases have been over 920 since September 15th. COVID-19 patients in Utah hospitals has been significant during the same time period. So therefore, this meeting shall not have a physical anchor location. All participants will connect remotely. All public meetings are available via YouTube live stream. The live stream link will be noticed on each agenda. And public comments may be emailed to hideoututah@hideoututah.gov. This determination will expire in 30 days on November 14th, 2020. So let me go back to the new share. There it is. Come back to the agenda. We're seeing the agenda now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's start with roll call for council. Carol.
I'm here.
Thank you. Chris.
Here.
Thank you. Jerry.
Here.
Ralph. Here. Bob.
Here.
Thank you. We have the full council. Polly is running late, but she'll be along shortly. All of you that I've let into the Zoom room have co-host abilities to mute and unmute yourselves. Tonight we have 2 agenda items. However, we will not be taking any action on item 1. So that topic is deferred until tomorrow for two reasons. One, we're not ready with the AMDA, and two, the court today ruled that they needed more time to think about the case that has been presented about a TRO or whatever's going on there, and therefore they've requested that we have no vote until tomorrow. So for two reasons, we're not going to be doing item number 1 tonight. Item 2, discussion and possible action on authorizing the mayor to enter into an annexation and master development agreement pertaining to the Silver Meadows annexation. We are still working on that on the content of that, and that's what we're going to work on tonight. So we will not be taking action on that other than modifying language and bringing, reviewing the changes that have been made since last night. Thanks to Bruce and Polly and Thomas and others who have been working on this, Nate. So we're going to be looking at that document next and going through what's changed since yesterday and getting your input on what else needs to be dealt with. So going to switch again and do a new share. And Bruce, help me if I think this is the one we've decided we're going to use tonight. So as we start to go through this, if it's not, let me know, but I think it's the right one.
Hello, Mayor.
Yes, Nate.
Brockbank. Hey, my planner has to leave at 6:45. He has another zoning meeting. If we want to go over anything on the plan, could we do that prior to 6:45?
I was going to
Sure.
request the same thing. I mean, we haven't seen
we
the
haven't looked
updated
at
map, so I'd like
All right,
to
let's
review that.
Okay.
Okay, we can do that first. That's no problem. You have it in your inbox, Jerry. I know it came in
Yes,
late.
I know I've seen it, but I'm saying we haven't seen
We
it
haven't talked
public
about it.
and discussed it.
All right, so you should be seeing the new lotting thing. So we can ask questions of Eric and Thomas.
Oh, never mind.
No, I need
Go
to
ahead.
make it bigger. I think this is the one you sent, Nate. Is this the correct one? Thomas, Nate, Eric?
It's got the OU1 overlay, so I
Yes.
think it is.
Yeah,
That's just the
that
new
is-
guarantees. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I
So
wanted
this
to,
is the new one. I know you do, Jerry. Let me
go
set
ahead.
it up for the rest of council. Okay, so this is reflecting 600 total residential units, of which 120, give or take, I think, is the affordable or accessible, or however we're defining that. So it's like 480 market price and 120 in here, and they've moved around. So get Eric or Nate, I don't know, or Thomas, somebody take the guys through the changes you made before we jump into questions.
Yeah, Nate, I can do that if you want me to. So really the biggest changes were in reduction of density across the board. Fewer single family lots, which means we have more lots that are a little bit larger than they were previously. A fewer cottage lots as well, and then a big drop in the townhomes, I believe, from 95 to 40. And then we also are only providing those in twin home settings, so there's nothing more than a duplex in the townhome scenario. Part of that also, with the reduction of the number of townhomes, we added another community park or neighborhood park there in the Meadow Village. And then really it was just refining some labels. We added the opportunity for a city hall and community center building there that on the other side of the grocer and market. That building's about 17,000 square feet, so should provide for the flexibility to provide a community community facility there. I think it's a great location. Again, we're utilizing that rail trail for access as much as possible. So, having that community center located there and the town hall located there, we thought was a great amenity and a great location to do that. And then, go ahead.
Do you want to go over the color? You want to go over the color scheme quickly, just because I'm not seeing it on the drawing here as to.
Yeah, you have to, some of the labels you
light.
can. Yeah, so the light yellow are the single family lots. Kind of the tan light brown are the cottage lots. And then any of the buildings in the villages, the Saddle Village or the Meadow Village, are the townhomes. The light green is community recreation open space, and then some of the darker green are the neighborhood parks, the village parks, and the passive park. And then when you get into the village center, the two distinctions down there are the darker kind of brick red it's the footprint for the retail component, and then the lighter would be possibly a mix of residential. And some of those you can see do also have some retail, fronting them. For instance, on the front of the condos that front Richardson Flats Road, we would like to look at live work units that address the streetscape there. And then Jerry, as you said, we did overlay the 2 acre out parcel in green that you see on the map there, and then the OU1 in the dark gray there on the bottom right of the page. But really that summarizes, less density, twin homes instead of 3, 4, or 5 sixplexes on the towns, and then refining, just the commercial square footage, which I think is now at 120,000 square feet. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And then there's zoning on the next page, guys. You can see the new zones in here. C being commercial, residential 6, R20 being the high density, R3 being the single family stuff.
And most
Mayor,
of what is
I'll work
art.
with Eric and Nate a little bit on that. We might tweak a little bit of these. We might have some lower density zones that work just fine for these, and I just want to make sure that we go over that. And we might be able to make NC work, neighborhood commercial, for the town center. But we'll finalize that tomorrow.
And most of what's in R20 appears to be now cottage
Right.
and townhome duplexes. So that may not need to be that high density.
Hey,
And I thank you for putting the community recreation zone on the map as well. I see those CRs, so that's.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Mayor, just one thing. I think there might be some people in the waiting room. You might want to direct them to where.
They do. They see that when they go in, Thomas.
Okay.
There's a message in the waiting room that tells them that they have to go to YouTube. So I'm only letting in people that are active in tonight's session.
Can I
Again,
say,
it's open to the public for viewing, but
can I say one thing about the plan?
sure.
So I had a call. I called Ann Assman, who's the Director of Advancement and Outreach at Gerontologist. She's a gerontologist, and she reached out to Chris, I believe, maybe last week. I spent about 45 minutes on the phone with her, got some of her ideas. She is very, very excited about this because really there's no place in Summit County, Park City, that she has found to do something like this. The assisted living center, the community seniors, it could be a community center, senior center, it could be combined. I mean, I don't really know that much about it. We're going to get together next week and walk through some of the projects that I've built. I have 3 projects that cater to the 55 and older communities. And we're going to go through those. 2 are in Holiday and 1 is up in Camas. And so, but she was very, very excited and appreciated all the work that the town had done to make sure that there's a community center for the senior citizens and the assisted living center. And the assisted living center, it's 72,000 square feet. it could be memory care. It could just be housing for the elderly. It could be where they need a little bit of medication. They need some nursing. That'll be determined as we get into we need to do a study on that in this area. But in fact, she's doing a study now that I forget, a group out of California is paying for, but they're definitely just looking for a site to go. But they were going to do a study, and she's pretty confident the study is going to come back that there's huge needs. And so to be able to tell you exactly what's going to be in that assisted living center, it's still a work in progress, but I'm sure we'll have some memory care. We'll have some assisted living that we'll have some that are taken care of by nurses, et cetera. But very, very exciting. She was very excited about that. So.
Okay, as am I.
On the cottage,
I may end up being a resident there before the end of the year.
on the cottage lots, can you explain? It looks like there's maybe a back alley entrance on those. If that's the case, that's very popular in North Texas. Those back alley entrances, the garage is on the back, so the street side of the house has no garage, and those work well. But that's what it looks like you have there.
That is correct. Not in all cases there, but in I'd say at least half of those cottage homes, we've tried to do that. We've done it in Utah quite a bit, and I think I've probably said in a meeting along the way that they're more and more accepted by buyers, especially that understand the value of not having a garage dominated streetscape. It puts an emphasis on your front porch and on your front door, and so we've tried to use that where we can have those cottage homes front onto a park or onto a green or onto a trail. But it's not exclusive to the plan. Up in the Saddle Village, we do have some of those that would be front loaded, just because of the topography and the way that the space worked out.
So Eric, we've had some conversations about, one thing we don't see on this plan is gas. And we've talked about drivable commercial versus walkable commercial. And I don't see the drivable commercial in the plan.
Right. And I think, our concept here of a town center, with a drive-through, let's, food or let's say a Maverick, gas station, we just don't feel is compatible. What we typically see from a planning standpoint are those are uses that occur, closer to a major road, Highway 248. I know Maverick owned that parcel over there for a long time. I don't think they currently do. And so we just felt, and I don't know if Thomas, I think, has had some opinions on this as well from a planning standpoint, but we just didn't feel that was a compatible, and also not a bang for the buck as far as space requirements, the amount of parking that it requires. And we felt like, especially with this lift plaza and, the focus on a grocer and some set down food opportunities, you can get a Chick-fil-A to not be a drive-through if you create a special enough place. I mean, the line at City Creek, whenever I go into the food court there is a line like I've never seen before. And that's not a drive-through. So if somebody, has a destination need for that, what we, kind of call quick serve retail, our focus would be to have it not be a drive-through in this, town center setting.
Eric, along that line, could you speak to, I do agree with that. I think this is a hard space to get a drive-through, and I also think that it helps to reduce the need to drive there, and maybe helps reduce some of the traffic on Richardson Flat Road. Hopefully people take more bikes than they walk. I think you guys have amenitized this pretty well. Could you speak a little bit about what % of the parking do you think is either underground podium structured parking for that area? Just given, you really have limited kind of relatively flat area for the town center.
Yep.
And we wouldn't want to see it used for parking where we don't have to use it for parking. Could you speak to percentages or numbers or rough ideas?
Yeah, percentages are harder. I can tell you by use. What we really tried to do is utilize Richardson Flat Road as kind of a main street. 45-degree parking, on-street parking, especially with that curve and that intersection that we're creating there. The goal is to really slow traffic down through there. And every retail user will tell you that they need to have visibility, and that is usually to a street. And so we've tried to balance that with also providing some parking that is internalized between the buildings there on the right, especially. The grocer on the left has about 140 stalls out in front of it. And, the trick there is that we're trying to create, no back doors, and it's a little bit tricky. And so the front door of that grocer faces left or to the east. And so our surface parking for the retail, we have more than enough, and it's all surface parking, a combination of on-street parking and traditional parking lots that we've, for the most part, tried to internalize. What we see a lot in retail is if somebody can drive by, and I use Main Street as a great example in Park City, you very rarely get to park in front of the shop that you're going to. But if you can drive by and see it and then know that you can go park and then walk back, Sweet Alley or whatever it is, that's super important. And so we've tried to accommodate that here. The residential component, we see basically all of the parking either tucked under the building in a structure, not necessarily subterranean. I don't think we're going down under anything, but with the residential built on top of that. So we can see some value in doing that from a visibility standpoint, and also from an added value, whether it's a condo or a workforce housing unit apartment or whatever that is. So the majority of that, we anticipate being under the building. But honestly, we have more parking for the retail than we probably will be required. So some of that parking may, become allocated to, say, the affordable housing or the condos. The trick with the retail at this level is unless you know what the use is, it's really hard to know for sure exactly how much parking you're going to need. And so having that flexibility as we, as this space develops, we will fine tune that. But you may have office in there, and you may have restaurants, and typically, restaurant at night and an office during the day are going to be able to share the same parking spot. So there's some things we can do that way as well.
I think
We're not under.
I think that's a great idea and creative. Yeah.
And to your point, like we've said all along, we've located this along the rail trail for a reason. And Wasatch, people who live in Wasatch County, Summit County, they're used to going places on their bikes, and they're only going to get more and more used to it, I think. And so creating that destination along that rail trail is super important. And, the amount of parking, you never want to over park it, but you sure don't want to under park it. So, we're trying to strike that balance.
So the workforce housing on the plaza, the parking for that is going to be internal as well?
I think some of it would be under the buildings. But so the buildings that are the dark red are main level retail, and office, and then the lighter brick red color is more like standalone residential. The one on the far right is a proposed police and fire station, and then you can see the town hall and community center there on the far left. Would not have any parking under those, but we will have some surface parking that can be allocated to the apartments as well. It really, Jerry, becomes a monitoring and a policing issue when you have somebody that is supposed to park in a section and somebody else is parking in their spot. It can be done. It just gets a little tricky. But the moral of the story is we have a good amount of parking for what we anticipate the uses to be.
So I have a question, and this is going to take one of the lawyers, I think, to help me answer it. But Richardson Flat Road is a county road. It doesn't. When you annex a road, does that become a town road? Because I don't know. I mean, would we have to get county agreement to widen that, use it for parking, et cetera? Or, I mean, I don't know how you can take that road and dedicate it to, angle parking without some kind of something. So I need some help to understand that.
I would have to look into the process, but it would stay a county road. So I can tell you that much, but I don't know what the process would be if it needs to be widened. It would probably have to be an agreement with the county to do that.
Eric, along that line, do you see Richardson Flat in that area? Are you proposing, is it angled on both sides and then one lane east, one lane west generally?
Yeah, exactly. 24, 26 feet of travel lanes, angled parking on both sides. As you move to the left there, I think I've only got it on one side.
So it maintains kind of smaller town center characteristics, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
26 feet would be the minimum from our perspective for the travel lane.
Yeah, and I think that's a great number. I'm actually, my next meeting, we have the same scenario, and that's exactly what we're dealing with. And it's about an 80-foot right of way. By the time you get any sort of, I think it's 8 or 10 feet of sidewalk space there that really transitions into your retail or your residential, kind of street facing uses. But yeah, we get the street trees in there and the lights and hanging banners and crosswalks, and it really does slow people down like a main street. Really does.
And when we talk about sidewalks, are these sidewalks that come right to the street like they do at Main Street in Park City,
Yes.
or do we have? Okay.
Yep, for sure. So you get out of your car and you have, typically if you've got a retail space, having 15-foot minimum to your building is preferred. If you've got a lot of our restaurants here, I think would be geared around the lift plaza. But if you had a restaurant, another 15 or 20 feet would be nice to be able to eat outdoors. And so, yeah, that it would basically become pavement from back of curb to the retail, kind of like if you go through Redstone out at Kimball Junction or something like that.
Hey,
Eric, how
any
big is that
consideration?
area? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one at a time, please. Go ahead, Ralph.
Hey, any consideration to electric vehicles and power in that parking lot near the grocery area where you've got 140, mostly to promote either bike, clean bikes or clean vehicles, so to speak, which is probably going to be more and more anyway as we go on.
Yeah, we haven't really discussed that level of detail, but I can't imagine that it wouldn't have some focus on electric vehicle charging, parking. I could see some e-bike stations, all of the above as we move forward.
Yeah,
Nate,
it's so popular around here, Eric. I mean, every other person has certainly an electric bike.
Yep.
So anyway, food for thought.
Yep, for
Chris
sure.
and I haven't succumbed yet.
Yeah.
We're still pedal pushing.
Sorry.
But.
Yeah, I would like to add, given the fact that, we'll have senior center and a senior community, what we're calling it, senior housing, senior living center. Hopefully there'll be ample handicap spots as well. So the actual effective parking for, gasoline cars is going to be maybe a lot less than 140 stalls in that area.
I actually accounted for that as a planner of 26 years. I know that calculation really well.
Okay, just remember we're talking about assisted living facility, senior center. They're not, they folks that need to go to the market might actually drive over, right? So they don't have to carry it. So
yeah, for sure.
I want to make sure
hopefully we'd run a shuttle for them or something like that.
Well, it depends on the nature of the facility,
Sure.
Mayor. If there's independent living in there, those folks are very mobile. They'll get in their cars and go places.
Yeah, it's definitely something we are factoring in, and we've been pretty conservative with our numbers to accommodate that. And there's also a space allocated there for a drop off at the front too. That so it's not just parking right up to the door.
Thomas, you were going to try and get a word in there somewhere.
Just a quick question for sake of scale. Eric, how big is how many acres is that town center area, not including, say, the assisted living site, just roughly the main area? How many acres?
Oh, I knew that number a little while ago, and I honestly, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the school site at 8.5, I would guess we're, 15.
15.
We're probably not quite double that.
Okay. And Eric, one favor, could you do us a favor? Could you KMZ this and put it on Google Earth?
Yes, for sure.
Thanks.
Other questions on the new proposed layout? Very interesting.
Eric and Nate, we had a little bit of a conversation prior with regard to the some of the housing on the east side of the town center area and some concerns with that ridge. I know you guys were going to look at that, maybe take that out or put it in a different area depending how that ridge line played out. That's something that we can still look at, work with you on.
Yeah, and Nate and I talked about it, and I looked at it. I think we just
Talking
need
about
more
this stuff over here?
No, on the other side.
Down to the bottom of the page, bottom left.
The ridge over there. Yeah.
I think we just need to. Well, because the map is upside down with the hill, with the mountain up. Yeah. I do that just to keep you on your toes. The fact of that the road is 30 or 35 feet below that knoll, and so we just need to have a little more study on that. I think Nate is open to looking at that, and we have a little wiggle room with the reduction in our single family density for sure, that if that becomes an issue from there, whatever viewpoint that is deemed to be a factor from, we can explore that.
And I was thinking you were talking about the homes to the south of the school site there, because you don't want those houses peering down over into Retreat at Jordanelle. So that ridge line to the south or up on the diagram from the church site.
Yes, and we have kept those. There's a bit of a gap in there. I think it's 20 or 30 feet, and then the slopes do fall off. But and you can see on the ends of those, most of those lots are the bigger lots, and so we can focus on pulling that back a little bit if needed.
And you have a potential church there with a steeple potentially, which might jut above the ridge line, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, potentially. And of all uses, I think that's the one that, you drive into. I grew up in the Midwest, and you drive into any small town, and I mean, even in Utah, and it's, a lot of times it's one of the most architecturally significant buildings in town. And some, a lot of times it's the first thing you see from a mile away. So we position that there to kind of have that effect, as well as being, somewhat central. And again, the church, the school, the town hall, the police and fire, the assisted living, the lift, all of these things focused around that existing rail trail, we felt was just super important.
Eric, this is Chris. The rail trail crossings, so the one that's near the church parcel, that would be a bridge over the rail trail, which is already submerged, kind of dug in.
Yep, exactly.
And the other one, though, that's by the lift area that goes on the other side of the school, what are you envisioning there as far as crossing?
That's probably an at-grade crossing. We'll have to look at it in a little more detail. I think there is some possibility that if I remember right, that one may have the possibility of having the trail go over the top. The one thing with that lift there, we'll have to study in detail the conflict between, the lift towers and getting people up and over. We've got a pretty decent separation there. But you know, that one and the one that accesses to the assisted living, I think we just have to study. You know, obviously going up and over those roads with a trail is a lot cheaper than having the road going up and over, but it's really just going to come down to what does the topography let us do. And we've
So
really tried to minimize the number of crossings, obviously.
Yeah, it would be ideal if that was uninterrupted, the trail, and that, like
Yeah.
they've done in Park City, you know, you might actually go under and, you know, have a little ramp on either side, bringing you up to the road level. But maybe going under could be less costly. If you can't, you know, if there's interference with that potential lift.
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, we just need, you know, that's a whole nother level of detail study that we'll have to look into.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure, since we're expecting that trail to be heavily used, I really don't want to have a road crossing or somebody has to stop and wait for cars to go by. And I just think it's dangerous for the trail users. I want to make sure that, you know, we have a commitment that, you know, we will ensure that those trail users don't have to cross roads.
Okay. Yeah, Nate and we can look into the
Hammer that
details.
out. Yep.
Yep.
You know, maybe we've talked about this already, and we're back to parking again. And can we talk about the dense areas where, you know, single family or the single family lots, I get it, right? The houses will have garages and driveways, kind of like standard. Let's go over parking again for the denser areas. And I see the, you know, are those that parking is going to be through the alley and then turn into a garage, or, you know, how's that going to work? And do we have sufficient guest parking and other stuff? I know that's details we can work out in the future, but I'm just wondering what your concept is there, Eric.
Yeah. So the concept there is, you know, for every townhome that it would have a 2-car garage, and especially since we've made these just the twin homes now, we have ample space to not only give them 2-car garage access and 2 guest stalls in front of their garage, but we also have areas that we can tuck in guest parking as well. And you know, the scale, we haven't really drilled down on that, but we have ample space to do that. You know, especially since we've loosened this up. You know, half the townhomes. I do like taking advantage of on-street parking in the months that allow that, because it's you know, really inefficient, or it's a really efficient way to gain some extra stalls. But you know, in the winter, we also want to be able to have off-street spaces, and we definitely have the space to do that now.
in the residential areas, how wide are you thinking the streets are? Asphalt.
Oh, you know, honestly, I don't know that I've looked at Hideout's standard. I know in Summit County, it's 24 feet of asphalt with 2.5-foot curb and gutters. You know, I think I've got 60-foot right of ways on everything, so we have plenty of space to accommodate.
We're 26 plus the curb and gutter. So.
And if you want on-street parking, you'll need to go to 32.
Okay.
In order to allow that.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, some places that may make sense, and typically where we've got the higher density, you know, the cottages and the townhomes, is the flatter ground, which is going to be more conducive to those wider roads. But the other thing we want to be sensitive to is as we get up, you know, into the saddles and you know, some of these areas that start to go up the draw a little bit, you know, we want to be a little more sensitive to the land and probably go with a smaller road. Or you know, a smaller road as possible.
Yeah, and then the other thing we have to make sure is we have, you know, a plan for snow in those places as well. So.
And snow storage is, I think you're talking about as well, right?
Yeah, and especially on the townhomes, you can see the way that we've laid those out is a lot of those, and even the cottages have dead ends where you can push the snow to.
Yeah.
I'm assuming all of the alleys are private, and so those will be an HOA, maintenance. And I know this is the funny side, right? You want enough snow that you have to haul it away. I know it's a pain, but that means you're having a good snow year for the resorts and for the region. So it's a
Yeah.
double-edged sword there. So guys, I've got like 2 minutes before I've
Yeah.
got to run into this one,
Okay.
and Nate, I know can speak to most of this. We've been pretty in depth with the plan together. So
Nate or Eric, do we plan on looking at the zoning at this point, the second page to this?
I think we touched on it briefly, and I think Thomas was saying we may, we might just be able to fine tune it a little bit with some of the changes we made. But I think generally, I think we're close there. I think there's maybe a commercial tweak that Thomas mentioned we might be able to take a look at, but I think it'd be a pretty easy adjustment or pretty easy analysis that we could do.
Maybe the R20 comes down as well.
I think the R20s, you may not need R20 in that location. And if we don't need, we would want to keep the zoning more commensurate with what is actually on the ground, but we'll look at that.
Yeah, the cluster development component or whatever.
And Thomas, you didn't redline this, obviously, so to speak, to give your thoughts over this like you did on the last one, correct?
Not this one, I haven't. Nope, not yet.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Eric's going to have to drop off, but while we're on this, we might as well finish up before we go to the language.
Hey, Phil.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I had a couple of messages from some of our constituents in town who basically seem to think, and this is going to be a bit of a tangent, that by us discussing the master development agreement, as well as, getting into the nuts and bolts of that somehow implies it will have, it's related to the upcoming annexation vote. And I just think it needs to be reiterated. There's no confusion that this is totally separate from any potential annexation vote.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Yeah. So the annexation vote is a separate process, but if the annexation were to proceed, then we need to have an AMDA document. So, it is necessary for us to think through an AMDA, because if the AMDA can't be put together in a way that satisfy the town's needs, then that would certainly influence the way we would vote as well. So they're kind of linked. One is you got to have an agreement on how what it is you're going to try and build before you make a decision on whether or not you want to build it.
And
So,
just to jump in, that actually the AMDA gets adopted or agreed to at the same time as an annexation. But just by working on an AMDA does not mean that by any means that you are moving forward with the annexation, but it is just one thing that needs to be done to even consider the annexation.
exactly. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, Mayor, I'm gonna
Thanks, Eric.
thank you all.
No
Yeah,
Thanks, Eric.
thank you.
Thanks for all
See ya.
your energy on this. We appreciate it.
Nope, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. So I am going to start back on this document again.
Mayor, if you go to section 1.2.9, I can tell you right away if it's the last draft.
Okay, I'm just trying to make it a little bigger here, Bruce. Give me a sec.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Because
You asked for a roadmap before we get started on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, we'll do
That's-
that. We'll do that.
That's the quickest way to know it's the last version for me.
I'll come back up, guys. He's just checking.
Stop to 1.9. Yes, sir. That's the last version because it has the city's advice from their environmental council, which I put in at about 4:40 today. So that is the
Right.
last version.
Okay. So this, this has been modified for the council's purposes for just from refreshing to refreshing last night. That is, what we have done is we put in language on, let me get my notes from today so we can, we put some definitions in because last night we identified definitions that needed to go in. For example, what's a chain store? We've put in some square footages around the retail. We put in language around environmental, around traffic study, and around financial feasibility study, which we're all going to look at in a minute. I just want to give you a heads up on what's coming. We put in some language about the HOA fees. I don't know if I think we put language in around the senior center, but I'm not sure because we were still going around with it the last time I
Yes.
chatted. So the mayor,
Yes,
that
sir.
may or may not be in there.
It's there.
Okay, so there'll be some language in about that. And then there's some other changes that went on after me, so we'll see those and we'll go through it again. The goal would be that we capture everything tonight that you guys want tweaked, so that tomorrow we can give it one more run, so we can look at it again tomorrow evening. Should we choose to move ahead with annexation, we would have a document that we're prepared to sign. So, okay. So all the stuff that you're going to see in red line are the changes that, what we did was we took the one from last night, stuff that was in blue line, red line last night were accepted, and then modified again today based on the inputs that we provided throughout the day. So those will all show up as red lines throughout here today. If it's not in red, it was stuff we looked at last night that hasn't been changed. Did I say that right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So minor change here on language to be clear that we understood that Stitching wasn't the developer. Added some language here that we've had lots of public discussion about this. This is sentence structure here. Here's the first new definition.
It doesn't have the cross-reference. By the time I wrote it, I just didn't put the cross-reference in there at the end, Mr. Mayor. I'll fix the cross-reference.
The cross-reference to?
At the end where it says, as more fully discussed in section, there was supposed to be a cross-reference. But
Gotcha.
I ran out of time, sir.
Yeah, I understand. Oh, I see. Back down here. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find it you'll find the cross-reference as we go deeper into the document. I've already made myself a note to fix that. And there's a couple of typos in this paragraph as well.
Okay. I'm not worrying about typos tonight. Just content. Here's another new definition.
Yeah, I was just going to explain where it came from. I went online and found a fairly standard definition of chain store. I probably looked at 5 or 6 of them. And this one is consistent with most of them. So I just cloned this one, as they say, good artists borrow, great artists steal. So I stole this one. I think I stole it from San Francisco.
It is. This is a good one. It's from San Francisco.
Yeah, I found it and put it in. These changes here on claim are all from your environmental council, probably even including the typo, which I'll fix because I just literally cloned them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my fault there. That typo is my fault. The arising is
No
your.
problem.
I'll fix them.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just capturing stuff as we go, so we remember to do it in the morning.
Yes, sir. I'll do obviously a final fly spec. That's what lawyers call it, to look for the smallest of errors. I'll try to catch a fly speck, and then of course, if it gets signed, I'll find another typo right after you sign it.
Of course you will. No worries. That's Murphy's Law. So again, I guess not all the council is aware, so I'll just take a minute here. We, with Polly's help, we identified a environmental lawyer who has good knowledge and has agreed to represent us in the help us put the language together for the environmental sections that we've done. So in addition to the work that Nate's people have done on the environment, we have our own set of eyes here. So
Mayor, I can tell
the
you,
language-
I have not had our environmental council look at this language yet because I didn't get it until 4/25. But we will have we'll have our environmental lawyer look at it. I've done enough environmental that it looks the same to me, frankly. I don't see anything that's a meaningful difference between the way we had written it and the way your people have written it. I think it's just 2 lawyers can disagree on how to write stuff.
Okay. There's a little clarification here in 1.2.12 on a commercial project size. So we Bruce came up with a good solution in the middle of the night last night. And thankfully he didn't call me. All proud of it in the middle of the night, but yeah. So we're measuring it as net leasable space under a standard Utah triple net lease, which is a standard for those who don't know commercial leasing. Triple net is how it's done.
So that solves the gross versus net
Yeah,
conversation
exactly.
from yesterday.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Jerry, we'll have to coordinate that between Thomas's plan. I'm sorry, between Eric's plan and Thomas. I just noticed that when I saw the plan that it had 120,000. So I'll have to.
That's gross. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if 120 gross produces 95 approximate net. So
Yeah.
we'll work on that.
Crossfoot those numbers and yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I know this was what you wanted, Jerry, so I put it.
Okay.
That's a straight clone from your environmental lawyer. I did go through and catch some typo errors, like a few places I'd written too fast and wrote the word city and it should be town. A couple places I forgot the apostrophe on homeowners. So we cleaned up most of those in this document. There may still be some, but I think we've got most of the fly specs done. That's just a grammar correction because it should have a hyphen.
Yeah.
This is a definition that I created for senior center. It's not the end of the world nor complete rocket science. There's clearly a typo in it. It should be of approximately 17,000 feet. I had not had a chance to review this definition with Thomas or Polly, but we can do that overnight. I'm sure I'm close enough that it's not an issue.
Just so you know, that 17,000 feet is the town hall and the senior community center.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Sorry, I thought, sorry, that's probably my bad.
We'll fix that overnight.
Okay.
I'm just making a note here, so we'll check it tomorrow.
No, that's very helpful, Mayor. I took, between the mayor's notes and my notes, I'm 98% certain that we caught everything that the city council, the town council asked for last night.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that's what we're doing tonight. Jerry, I don't know if this makes you solve
that
your
works.
concern, but
That
if that
works.
works, and that's what I thought.
That takes us above megabit speed, so that's very helpful.
I said I was just worried that the mayor would want terabyte speed, but again, that changes directly from your
Right.
your council.
Right.
Hold on. 2.2.4 environmental conditions has no content.
No, it's got the sub. It doesn't.
It's got a sub under it.
That should be a sub.
Jerry.
I just didn't indent it right, Jerry.
Okay.
That should be a tab. Just hit tab, Mayor. Yep, there you go. I say, the mayor gave me a hard stop at 5 o'clock on this, and I finished it, and it wasn't perfect.
So this language,
It was all there
this
before.
language is the same as last night.
That's the new. That's
Up until here.
Yep. Again, that's just a dead clone from your lawyer.
Right.
That's a clone from your lawyer. The
Right.
change, we went from 4 years to 10 years at the mayor's suggestion because there was some concern that 4 wouldn't be long enough. And then the next sentence at the end of this page is also added at the mayor's suggestion, which is essentially
So- Yeah. Just so you guys know, that 4 is already strike through. It happens to be in the same place that the cross on the 4 goes, but that 4 in the parentheses is strike through.
You mean it's not 410 years?
No,
No.
it's not. No.
not.
But the next sentence makes it run longer too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So assuming that you're in court for a while, what we're saying is that we will reset the window on the environmental plan coverage to be operable during the time in which we start digging in the ground, because that's where you're going to find issues if we haven't found them, through the testing.
Again, 2.2.5.1, that's all those changes are made by your environmental consultant. And it's actually
Yeah.
2.2.5.2, I think some of that was requested by the mayor. That was not put in by
Yeah.
your environmental consultant, but that's your language.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mayor, can you scroll back up to the bottom of, there we go.
That's language from the mayor in 2.2.5.2. And
There's
up
language
above
somewhere
it,
that says that if monitoring is recommended, that the master developer would,
it's going
is-
on. It's later.
it's coming down a little bit
Yep,
further.
you'll
So,
you'll find it. It's here.
yeah. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. And the change I wanted to make here, Bruce, and I didn't get to do it, but is that, and I'll write it wrong and we can clean it later, but
Yeah.
the through in the design of the project, should the design of the project be such that we are that we end up lower than OU1, we also want to make sure that runoff from OU1 doesn't run into the project either.
I got it. We're just a
Right.
reciprocal clause isolating property.
Yeah.
This project should be isolated from OU1. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody wants to touch OU1.
Right. So we want to make sure that if in the process of clearing land and whatever, we end up dropping our elevation to the point that their flows can come into the project, we want to make sure we mitigate that.
Absolutely. Good catch, Mayor.
So then this is the table we looked at last night.
This is the next one. This is the change that Jerry brought up about 20% tranche being too much before you got any commercial. So what I did was I split the first 20% into two 10% tranches. So you get 10% free. To get the next 10%, you have to build 10%. To get the next 10%, you have to build 10%. And then it goes 20, 20, 20 after that till completion. So
we get 20% of the commercial before the second set of 20% of residential.
correct.
Right.
But more importantly, you get 10% of the
10%.
commercial right
Yeah.
up front.
Yeah.
That's the one that worried you was getting.
Well, not right up front, but following 60.
Well, yeah, in the first part of the project, for sure.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Not right up front, but very quickly.
And now, does this also talk about prioritizing the residential within the town center?
It doesn't, but we could put a provision to the extent that we could put a provision that says we'll take commercially reasonable efforts to prioritize the initial residential towards the town center. Yeah, we can do that. And I apologize if there's something I missed. I think that's it. So yeah, Mayor, if you just would make a note there, just after that big red note, or at the end of the paragraph, I don't even care. Just put the word prioritize town center, and then I'll know what it means. I'm also making a hard copy note here.
I am as well.
And that also
This
makes some
seems to be a
sense.
little bit more
sense.
readable. Sorry, Thomas, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it makes some sense to do that because you'll be doing some, if you're doing some of the commercial down there anyway, you'll probably want to build the upper levels out anyway.
Yeah, it's a perfectly logical thing to do. I frankly missed it. I think that's probably the only one I missed, but I missed it.
And one comment I had, Thomas, you and I seem to be butting heads every once in a while here, but and maybe this goes more to Nate. I think the wording here is cleaner than it was, so thanks for the improvement. I also think the increase of 4 to 10 years is great. I think that just risk mitigation, that protects the town a little bit more on the previous clause. But maybe my question is, do we need an anchor location sooner than later? And if it was the grocery at 25,000 feet, that would be more than 10%. So I know we're not limited to 10%, I think is that a minimum there to, to begin with. But really it comes down to throw out the percentages in effect. Don't you need a decent anchor location to build out the other stores and attract other businesses in this area? So I'll put this to Nate more than a legal standpoint, as the essence of what we're trying to create here. He may have left.
Oh, he's on, he just unmute.
While he's unmuting himself, the answer is absolutely. And if it comes in, yes, but I know Nate's going to give you the same answer, Ralph, and I appreciate that's a business call. So,
Are you there, Nate?
Nate?
Are you multitasking?
Is he still showing up as a participant?
Yeah, he's still showing on the list. He just
I think I'm unmuted.
Now
you are.
I don't know what I did, but I pushed a button. I cannot see the screen to unmute myself. I am computer illiterate, but thank you for Alicia sending me that. So yeah, just like Bruce said, 100%. We want the more commercial we can build, the better, up front if there's a need for it. But we don't want to build a commercial center with nothing around us. And so that's why we've done that. And we hope once we can start marketing this, we do get a grocery store right off front. If we get a grocery store, everything's the rest of it's going to fall into place. But as you know, I said this before, I have not started marketing this at all just because we have no idea if we're going to get annexed. So.
Yeah. No, again, more food for thought, because if you went into the small buildings or small commercial, you may not attract anything around it for a long time, and you're self-defeating on sustainability. So,
yeah. If we get annexed, the first thing we will do is try to find a grocer.
Heck yeah.
Because then everything falls right into place.
Okay, so then, so this is the, this is the language that says that they will have gotten the building permits for the commercial projects going forward, so forth. So.
The second to the last red line there says 10% of commercial projects. I thought we were doing a 2020 leapfrog, and it looks like we're doing a 2010 leapfrog.
If there's an error, I think that's actually on the first one. If that's a mistake, I think that's the second 10. Jerry.
Yeah.
We can work that language out. The intent is 10 is a trailing 10 up until 20, and then 20 up, then 20, then trailing 20s after that. But if the language I've had.
Yeah,
this,
Mayor, right there, right where you're at. That 10% I think is wrong.
Okay.
We'll work on that.
That should be 20, I think, because that.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jerry, but I got to read it through again in detail. But yeah, I think you're right. Because I think we did the second 10 up here, but I don't know. Additional 10% residential.
Yeah,
so,
and then we went to the 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Okay. That's the same. CCNRs, which we will then have to work on if we move ahead. We didn't get a grocery store number yet, guys. We need to get a grocery store number.
I know.
I think that we started looking at this, and I think, we've got the commercial building as 25K. I think we're looking at roughly the same for the leasable space for the grocery store. And then the other spaces are under 10,000. I've got some language I can send Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, I know Nate has done some research on grocery store sizes as well, so we wanted to have some flex in that.
Well, we
Well, and I thought,
I wouldn't
go ahead,
want
Chris.
to- Yeah, as far as a grocery store, that's one of our, from our community members, that's one of the most important things for us to put in there. So I really wouldn't want to overly restrict the size to exceed, only because we don't know yet what may possibly go in there. So I wouldn't want one to be overly restrictive there, so that we have an opportunity not to rule out, a potential grocery store there that people would want that may be a little larger than we're thinking about right now.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
thought the idea last night was we were going to grant the administrator some leeway rights on both the grocery and the remaining.
That's
commercial.
right, because
And
if
it's
the
there.
grocery store comes in around 20, 25, 30, I think that that's okay. I think that if we say 25, 30, but we give administrative relief, that's good. You don't want a 70,000 square foot grocery store. That'll generate so much traffic, it would shut the entire area down. And then just, it would then reduce the amount of square foot that you have available for the rest of the town center. So there's
Yeah, I
kind
think-
of,
I'm sorry,
I
Jerry.
think the unless approved by the administrator is the language that needs to be pulled up to the grocery store
right.
piece as well.
Yeah, and I think it's actually taken care of in section 11, but we can fix it in both places.
Again, just making a note, Bruce.
Nope, got it. That's very, very helpful.
So Nate, I don't think you're muted, so you should be able to speak.
Yes.
I remember you had said you'd done some research on a couple of grocery store sizes. Could you just refresh us on those?
Yeah, the average is about 27, for a smaller grocer is about 27,000 square feet. The bigger,
Okay.
obviously is I think 65,000. Someone threw out a number of Smiths last week, but I can't remember what that is, but the smaller grocer is about 27. Yeah, 65, yeah.
And the average Trader Joe's is between 15 and 17.
Yes.
So smaller,
Yeah, they're typically small footprint, high density, small footprint.
Yeah,
high
I just want to say Trader Joe's is awesome, right? A lot of people love that place and they have to drive great distances to go to one. For me, it's, if we're talking about really trying to meet the needs of folks, yeah, maybe that's appropriate for the region. You could still, go to the existing stores in Summit County to do your major shopping, your regular shopping. But I would hope we would be attracting, a grocery store so that we don't have to drive to Kimball Junction, or we don't have to
Right.
drive into Park City. So
You're
I'm
saying
just
Trader Joe's is a little too niche for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love it, right? And a lot of people do, and maybe it's the right thing, but it is niche, and I do think
I agree,
I
Chris.
think that way, Nate. So I just wanted to put that.
Yeah, I love it too. And if they want to come in as well, that's great. But I don't do my daily shopping at a Trader Joe's. Typically go when we're having company or need something interesting.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so remember, we are trying to
Okay.
not drive into Park City.
Yeah, and I certainly wasn't proposing a Trader Joe's either. Just a comparative square footage of what that
Thank
store typically, comes in at.
Thanks. I don't mean to belabor it, but I just wanted to say.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure we could, it would be the perfect thing for our area. Be great to have somewhere around here, but
Be
a
wonderful.
lot of things would be great.
And these are the two provisions related to the assisted living facility and the senior center. Fairly,
Yep.
fairly generic provisions.
Should that read, shall not count towards, not against? Is there a difference?
I think actually I like against, frankly, but we can work on that.
Tell me what it means.
It means that whatever the square footage in the commercial project estimated size, the 120,000 square foot gross, 95,000 net. The senior community center is not part of that number.
Okay. Do you also want to say that, does it count as commercial when we're talking about our leapfrog approach? Or does it count as residential?
I wasn't counting it as either, but
Me either.
the reason, Jerry, is because I honestly didn't have time to talk about that with either Nate or the mayor or Thomas. So I just took a stab at what I thought would be the right answer here.
And I think Bruce, you're on the right track. I think it shall not count for or against the commercial project's estimated size. It is, I think it the same way you do. It's independent.
Yeah, so put for or against, I'm fine with either one. And similarly on the assisted living center, it doesn't count towards the residential uses because it's commercial.
That's fair.
But I guess the question is, does it count for commercial? And I hadn't thought through that issue either. So I don't know whether the assisted living should count towards commercial.
I kind of like it as just an independent wild card there, you know,
I think that's probably right. I think that's right. And I was just kind of flying this and hoping we could talk about it tonight. I think that's the right answer.
Yeah, I would say because it's outside of the town center, that it shouldn't count. But I don't know about how do you guys feel about town hall and the senior center counting towards the 10 or percent or 20%, whatever.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, but you're not building either of those, right? The town hall or the center?
Yeah.
So by definition, it doesn't, you don't get credit for it if you haven't built it.
Okay.
Or if you're not building it, right?
That's fine with me.
That makes a good point, Jerry.
Yep.
Now you go a long time without any changes because this is boilerplate.
Could I just mention one thing right after the assisted living facility? I know there was some discussion with regard to affordable housing, and I think we might want to include maybe just a note that it's a minimum of 20% of the total units. You guys meet that, but then also note that the affordable housing units should be built per the same schedule as the market residential units. So as you build out market units, the affordable build out with them proportionately.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like that.
Okay. That makes sense, and I didn't put that in, so yeah.
I have a little paragraph here I could send you.
Okay, yeah, just if you just wrote the words pari passu, I'd be fine, Mayor. Pari passu is Latin for in equal measure.
Yeah.
He's got all the nice.
I'll let you put the Latin in. I did okay with Voltaire, but I'm going to be in trouble on the Latin.
That's
All
a
right.
Perry, right? Perry?
Yeah, exactly. Pari passu. Or just call it pro rata or whatever you want. So
Yeah, all right.
and Thomas, if you've got language for that, that'll help me. But otherwise, just a few seconds.
Yours sounds very nice, but I'll send you mine.
Okay. Yeah, this is all going to be boilerplate for quite a while.
Yeah, this is the same stuff we looked at yesterday. We'll get a chance to read it again.
Now you're coming up. Yeah, we'll get through this, and then there'll be a couple at the end of this.
Yeah, there's some more stuff.
That's just a technical because we had the word default defined. So there was no reason to put the word current breach, so we just changed it. I just changed it to default. As I said, some of these are just cleanups. This is the HOA's issue as opposed to HOA. This is where I screwed up and wrote city as opposed to.
Could you stop at 732? I think we might want to note something here that the parks and trails, is it 732? Yeah, maybe just something along the line that they should be constructed in all phase proportionately as well. I do think that's important. I think it's beneficial to Nate and the marketability units as well.
But there's also one thing there, that you just found one that I mistook, and this is Chris's issue. And Chris, I apologize. Just if you type the word master backbone trail, Mayor, because Nate agreed the backbone trail with the first 20%. or 20 or 40, I can't remember which it was. And that's my mistake for missing it. Chris, I apologize.
That's okay. I just wanted as soon as possible. Is the first 20% the best you can do for the backbone?
What we decided to do, Chris, is we'll do everything that's in the open spaces. So everything that's in the open spaces we'll do in phase 1, and then we will do the first.
By phase 1, do you mean the first 20%, Nate?
Or the first 10%, because the
Yeah,
first phase is technically 10%.
First
Okay.
10%. I don't have a number, but it looks like I would just guess 70% of the trails are in the first, are all in the open space, and so.
So Mayor, if you'd just write backbone in open space at 10%, then I know exactly what to do.
Great, thank you.
And Chris, I apologize for missing that one.
I missed it. It was my fault. I thought.
I missed it too. So. it's all
Okay,
of us.
well,
But Tom is remembered. Thank you.
Which is why this is a group effort.
Yep.
I am just taking a second to save.
save the
since I'm doing all
document.
this work.
Yep.
And, you know.
I hope everybody likes the way I name these things so you can track them. And you might be at the end of, you got more room. I remember when you couldn't have more than, you got too many characters, Mayor.
Yeah, I'll get rid of some.
It doesn't matter. Just call it in meeting notes and then I'm fine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
You're limited to 200 characters in the name string.
No,
Uh-oh.
I don't want to do. I want to save it. I don't want. I gotta save it. It was going to OneDrive and it wasn't logged in, so I know. Okay, I gotta save it to my desktop instead. Yeah, I know. I'll try again.
Now we all get a look at your file architecture.
Yeah, well, it's not great. I can tell you that,
Nobody's is.
but I manage. Hope you didn't see the title of the one that says, garbage to give Bruce Baird.
Mayor?
I'm sorry, don't leave the HOA responsibility one.
Stop there, yeah.
All right. Yeah.
The words, I added the words respective defaulting HOAs, if that's what you're looking at, Jerry, and that's to indicate that if 7 HOAs are performing their duty, let's assume we have multiple HOAs, the only claim would be against the defaulting HOA rather than all of the HOAs.
And then the only other thing that I was thinking is we had briefly discussed the issue of the affordable and workforce housing HOA fees, and I thought that.
It's the next
I
paragraph.
added a line on that, Thomas.
I know,
It's
but
the
I
We're
thought,
getting to it.
I know, but I thought if we got a little bit more specific on that, it may be helpful in terms of what some of our surrounding communities are doing. And that is maybe for units deed restricted to 80% of AMI, maybe no greater than a monthly HOA fee of 150, 100% of AMI, maybe 250, 120% of AMI, maybe $350. I think we should set that because I do think that otherwise it's impossible to ensure that we maintain affordability for those.
If you want to propose something, I don't have any problem with that. I didn't have any information on that in time to put it in.
I could send it over. Bruce, take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah,
the
Thomas,
problem-
we got to. I'm happy that for you to do that, but it's got to be tomorrow in the morning.
Yep.
I don't know what your schedule's like, but we're getting short on time, so
It's ready to go.
you got to find a way to do that.
Yeah, obviously, the issue, of course, is anytime you fix a number in a time certain, you run the issue of inflation adjusted, et cetera. So I didn't have a problem with having the vagueness here, but I have no problem with specific either.
And we can allow for fluctuation.
Okay. You got language, I'll steal it.
Okay.
By the way, I did get some food tonight, so.
Yay. I don't have to hear about how hard you're working.
This is the new language on the traffic study.
Yeah.
There's also the other language on 248 just stayed.
That's not bad, Bruce. You did pretty well, given what we gave you.
I tried, Mayor. Thank you. And as you can tell, that language at 743 was in there in general relating to the 248 connector. I just split it off to say it's relating to anything traffic related.
That's something for council to think about as we review this one more time tomorrow. But basically, because neither Nate or the town can guarantee that we can figure out how to get UDOT and so forth to let us put a road in 248 and when. The proposal is that we would allow development with just Richardson Flat, at least at the beginning, because if the fire department allows it. Because if we wait on 248 connector, we could lose years. I mean, we've been spending over a year and a half, maybe two, on the claim project, just getting that one little piece of dirt lined up with UDOT. So, and it's not 10 yards of road. So, so I understand the concern that if we hang everything on a 248 connector, we could be all retired and in somebody else's senior living before UDOT gave us permission. So.
And not just UDOT, that road also runs over the Park City claimed development agreement as well. So, okay.
I figured we'd just tunnel right underneath there, Bruce, so they wouldn't be disturbed.
Yeah.
I thought that deed restriction didn't restrict roads and parks.
Well,
So-
yeah, but you don't know what Park City may claim, Jerry. You're reading it the same way I do, but I don't know how Park City's going to read it.
So that's a kind of a compromise there we need to think about.
And right here.
Hold on, there was a date there that we had a comment on it.
That comment was in the last draft. I just forgot to delete it. That's all.
And the number 8, I think they're referred to as design guidelines. Earlier, they're standards. I think we should change these to standards. I added a little bit of language. I'll send that to you, Bruce.
Okay. Yeah, and you're correct.
You want to change this language to standards? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
that's just what's up above and at the back end. Yeah.
And it's also the definition. That's my mistake, and that came from cloning this old. We'll fix. It's fixed. So. None of this changed.
You know, something that just struck me is we haven't really talked about at what point applications and approvals occur. Is it by phase? Is it the entire thing? I think we see that over time needs and conditions change. So I would hope that we're not talking about, you know, this approves everything.
No, you have to bring in a development application. We actually do have a very extensive provision for that. It's been in all these drafts. There's a development application, and if it may be for a subdivision or a commercial site plan, it has to be it has to be processed through standard city processes and comply with.
Planning commission, town council,
Okay.
all that.
Yeah.
Good. And
Yeah.
by phase.
By project, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if they brought the whole thing in at once, we'd tell them no anyway, so.
One
And
thing we
Bruce, I
could
think you've got
do-
language in here with regard to guidelines, standards, that kind of thing, giving us some time to actually prepare that and work with you all, right?
Yes, sir. That's in there.
Okay.
Chris, you were going to say something? I'm sorry.
That was
It was
me.
Polly.
Oh,
I was just
Polly.
gonna say is, would it make sense to require a phasing plan? Obviously,
No.
I don't think it could be done tomorrow, but we could put something in intentional saying that a phasing plan will be submitted to the town.
We've already got a phasing plan in the 10-10-20-20-20 version. It'd be very hard to do a phasing plan at this late date, even to put it in for a future date. I just, it's just a nightmare to try to make that much of a change in this document at this last date.
I don't think she's asking you to put the phasing plan in here, Bruce. She's saying a statement that said that, you know, before the first approval, you'll bring a phasing plan to the council. The first,
I'd
the
rather
first
not.
permit or whatever.
I'd rather not. I'd rather not have to do that. If the town absolutely requires it, I can write it. I'd rather not.
I'm hearing a council member who's interested. I don't know about a majority of them, but I'm hearing one who is expressing wanting a phasing plan, so.
So a phasing plan before we start phase one, is that what you're asking?
We want to know how
Yeah.
you're going to develop it.
Before you come in and pull your first permits, we just want to have a
Before the
refresh on
first,
plan.
or with the first application, that it includes the project phasing plan. And I think that's a good idea too.
I think that's,
Which I think is required, Jerry, in our code, isn't it?
yeah, I think that's a fair ask. I don't have an issue with that.
Done. I'll put it in tomorrow. Just make a note.
I think it's actually in our code, so it's sort of in there indirectly because they said they're going to follow our code. I think, isn't that what we ask in our code for a phasing plan?
To be honest, Mayor, I'm not positive that the code mandates for a multi-phase development that the first application includes a phasing plan.
I know we've done that in Deer Waters and Deer Springs, and it's not an issue.
Okay, I'll put it in.
Okay.
Where do we want to put it, Bruce?
Just Mayor, make a note. I'll figure out where it goes at the most logical place. Just actually, sir, if you'd go up to like section 3 or 4, either one, where it talks about development, keep going. I'll know where I want it. Keep going. Or go to the top of that section. Keep going.
Yeah.
Almost there. Right. Yeah. There we go. Just put it right up towards put phasing plan up front. Okay, I can put that in. It'll be very simple.
Yeah, that's fine. Then we were down here somewhere, I think.
9, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, the changes in 9.9 are very, very minor. They're just requested by, they're making the process clearer for the owner, that's all.
And Paula, you've seen this and don't have a problem with this? This is a little legal for my eyes.
I need to look at it closer.
Okay.
I have not looked at the changes in this draft, but since I've been in another meeting immediately before this.
Actually, the only changes in this draft are the stuff that's in red. Everything else was already there. The rest is just my comment, because I always make sure that it's transparent to you. So only the red highlights are actual changes.
I'll just take a look, Jerry.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna need you to do a full and thorough read, Polly, from a legal standpoint.
Yeah.
You'll see there, this is, I added this sentence because I wasn't sure at the time, because I hadn't seen the new map. This sentence may be able to go away. Nate, if you're comfortable that you know where in the town center, the senior community center is going to go, or the assisted living center, then I can either kill one or both of these. I just hadn't seen the map. So I was preemptively guessing that they may need to float a little bit. If you're fine with taking this out of administrator approval, I'm happy to take it out. I was just protecting.
That's up to the town. We know where it's at on the concept, but that may not work for the town, but we know where we would like it in the concept plan.
I mean, but it also may, in most, when you get your topographics in and all, you may find you have to make some adjustments. So I don't see what the harm is to leaving it in, Bruce.
I don't either. I tried to preemptively guess that we might need it. That's all.
Yeah, leave it in.
Will this be included in the phasing plan as to when that will take place?
Sure, everything would be included in the phasing plan.
Well,
Okay.
Carol, with regard to the town hall and senior community center, those
Right.
aren't buildings that Nate's building. So that's more up to us, I suppose. Now, when does the dedication of the land occur?
It's up above. It's but that was where you saw the note, March 21st, I think, the little
Okay.
comment on the side.
Yeah.
All right.
This is the economic feasibility study language that I cleaned up to make it clear that the town, this is where I had the deeply involved, Ralph, just as a placeholder. And we just made it clearer, and we buffed this up a bit to explain more about what the purpose was and the coordination with the town.
And I've heard from some council the idea of also requiring or including within that study, or maybe it would be a different study, but a feasibility study that matches the state code requirements for an annexation.
I've done those before. They're a nightmare.
But they would give,
Wow.
I'm just throwing that out there for council. If that's something we can go over what's in that.
Yeah,
Um,
Polly, what
Polly,
does that?
I don't think we know enough to give you any input yet, because I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I can, it's kind of technical, but it is, pull it up.
Yeah, can you highlight the things it includes?
Yeah. Why don't you keep going and I will get
Yeah, I
back,
mean, you can
back
do
to
that. I
you.
mean, we can do that as an ad tomorrow. If you give us
Uh-huh.
some reading content, you can
Okay.
make a decision then.
Great. Just so you know, it's based on 10 to 413, and I will send that section to council.
Just telling you, it's a nightmare. I've worked on them before. It's in counties of the first class. And it's very, very, very complex.
Yeah, Polly, I appreciate you sending us the actual language, but yeah.
And can you run it through Google Translate for us?
Yeah, give us a summary of the high points.
Yeah, just take a look and see, or maybe there's certain portions of it that you would find helpful as in terms of just, of a study.
Okay. I don't want to hold up the meeting tonight on that. We can read it
No.
overnight and add some more,
Exactly.
give you some feedback.
And
And this is all
just a
type of
minor-
stuff.
Yeah, there's
Typo
nothing
stuff.
left. There's nothing left that's substantive.
Typo stuff. In fact, not even typos.
No,
So,
I did a
Okay.
fly spec on most of it. I'd accidentally put in a double acknowledgement for the owner, so.
all right, kids.
And Bruce, would you go to or have Nate just send us a letter explaining the relationship between NB 248 LLC and the entity that we entered the indemnification agreement with? and the
Sure, we
indemnification
can
agreement?
explain that. We can explain it.
Since you're bringing up LLCs, I do have a comment. And this, I got some feedback from the public on this. So what happens if, there's a LLC insolvency? And what kind of indemnification can we get? I don't know if upfront bonding or escrow or some kind of guarantees, but what?
It's sort of the same discussion we had last night, Chris, and there's always an issue. And I did remember the words that I was looking at. In case there's an insolvency, any guarantees like that would be known as an executory contract in bankruptcy and rejectable in bankruptcy. So in all development agreements, they're almost all done by what's known as SPEs, special purpose entities, and special purpose or single purpose entities. And all SPEs have a potential risk of that. The weapon that the town has is the value of the property with a development agreement is massively more valuable than the property without the development agreement. So nobody's going to give up. Somebody will find a way to take over the value of the development agreement. And that's just the way it always works. I don't know of any development agreement and I haven't worked on any that has that even bothers to deal with that issue. Because there's just no way to do it.
Bruce, to be fair, we're adjacent to an EPA Superfund site. So, let's, play the devil's advocate here and say that, somewhere in time, we realize there's a $1.5 million cleanup required, and now no one wants to touch this with a 10-foot pole, and now the town's on the hook for that.
Well, that's why we talked about it last night, because I used the phrase last night and I'll use it again today: belt, suspenders, and stapling your pants to your stomach. The belt is that we have.
I get the analogy, and the fact that I'm bringing it up again indicates I'm still a little uncomfortable with the town's position on that the indemnification, if that goes away, and you're saying, well, somebody will take over the property. Well, if there's a huge environmental liability on the property, that's much less likely to happen.
True.
I'm just looking for the indemnification section here, but there it is.
I don't know how to solve it, Jerry, and I can tell you that the Sharon Steel site in Midvale, I wasn't directly involved in that, but I've represented properties in that site. They resolve it essentially this same way. I'm not aware of a way to resolve it other than, as I say, belt and suspenders and stapling your stomach to your pants. The risks are the risks of the town having liability would require A, that there was a condition, B, that people missed it, including your environmental experts and our environmental experts, while they did their investigations. C, that somebody caused the problem while they were doing construction of a town-related asset, and which could really only be the road. Because I'm assuming you'll do your own phase 2, et cetera, for whatever buildings you're doing. The odds are.
But Bruce, I think what the concern is, we understand that you're saying, well, you know, in terms of the environmental, maybe the risk is low, but there are a lot of other requirements in this agreement for the developer. So what happens if the developer goes belly up and we have a half-built chairlift, or we have a half-built commercial center or road that just is left there? How do we ensure that, you know, that the successors will be obligated to do all the requirements that are necessary?
Because if they don't, the development agreement goes away.
Well, and then we're left with a half-built mess.
What's your proposal?
Well, I don't know that we are, the people, you know, he's going to get financing from somewhere, and they're going to be the guys that have the dirt. I mean, it would be inside the town of Hideout, but, you know, it would be not grossly different than what it is today, which is, you know, being managed by a bankruptcy environment where they're trying to find somebody to take it over. And this helps them sell it. So
There were, in the Great Recession, there were several larger projects. I wouldn't say master development projects, but I know of a couple of large subdivisions, for example, where the subdivider went belly up, and there were bonds that were not appropriately called. And whoever bought the property, that's the financing entity, winds up having to put the improvements in, because that's the only way they're going to realize any value out of the site.
Are bonds put in place sometime?
Almost never. Almost since 2005, when the state law changed to allow construction to be built without performance and payment bonds, very few projects have performance and payment bonds anymore on public amenities. Bonds are almost impossible to get, extremely difficult. Letters of credit, to get a letter of credit now for a project like this essentially means if you get a letter of credit from a bank for $1 million, you're going to have to put $1 million in the bank to get the letter of credit.
And Bruce, you know, not that this is your fault, and I'm not trying to make a false equivalency here, but, you know, the town is dealing with a project that was abandoned that left a scar in the town. So we're a little sensitive to that.
I completely understand that. I'm aware of it. This is the reason that people finish projects is the only way to recognize the value of this dirt is to have the development agreement. Because if the development agreement goes away, you're looking at raw dirt. So somebody's invested $10 million to give Nate construction loans, et cetera. Assume somehow Nate defaults on that. Whoever's got the $10 million has to protect that $10 million by finishing the project. Otherwise, they've got no land. They got no value.
those are, I think, you know, Jerry and Chris, you raise a great point. I think we have to rely on our legal folks for helping us to understand what is normal and customary in these kinds of agreements.
And how
that's why I would-
exposed are we?
Yeah, it's what that's what we have them for. Because none of us are lawyers, and at least not land use lawyers.
This template has been used in over 30,000 houses. Millions of square feet of commercial.
I mean, I will say one thing, I'm not borrowing money to buy the ground. In
Yep.
Deer Springs and Deer Waters, I've put all the improvements in without borrowing any money. It's just been out of cash. And I would anticipate the same thing here. And so it would have to be just something very, very horrible for me to even fathom walking away from that kind of money. And I just don't ever see it. But so I don't know. I don't know how you put in wording or whatever. Pauline does, but
Yeah, again, the legal team has got to look at these for, as far as I say, normal and customary, and, give us the assurance that this is, there's always risk in everything. So, and you can't get to zero and get anybody to do anything. So there has to be, we have to decide what that threshold is and whether or not is what Bruce described as the mechanism for how you get somebody else to come in and take over and finish the job kind of thing is a reasonable expectation for how this thing gets resolved. And again, that's one more thing to think about as you make your decision. As we get into the decision making process tomorrow.
Okay, you ready for another hard one? Not that hard.
So.
Okay.
Always ready for you, Chris.
So one of the things that I became aware of is that Park City has a soils ordinance, and they have a soils ordinance for a reason, right? Because of it being a mining town, and it does cover specific areas within their boundaries. So we are literally up against OU1 and pretty close, to that repository. I don't think I've seen anything here about that. We don't currently have a soils ordinance in our town because we haven't had the need for one prior to this potential annexation. So can we talk about that? Go ahead, Polly.
Sorry to interrupt. Our environmental attorney did put something in about soil coverage.
Oh, good. I didn't see that. I must have
I don't know
been.
if you want to do, no, I mean, it came in very late. This just came in this last, but let's read it to make sure it covers all the items that you want. It was up in the environmental section.
Okay.
I just cloned them in, so.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Let's go slow.
That was easy.
Oh, there's a soils management plan required. There it is. It's up a little bit above there. Yep, there we
Yeah.
go. So you get
Okay.
to approve a soils management plan. Chris, there's another way to fix this as well. I have not discussed this with Nate, but I don't see it to be a downside. And that would be to, if you go up, Mayor, if you would, to the vesting section. Oh, I guess it's down. Go down. Sorry, my fault. Down, my fault. I apologize. Go to vesting in, I keep going. That's 3 is development, 4 will be vesting. Yep, there you go. Keep going a little bit further. Exceptions, go to 4.3. Go to the end of 4.3. Keep going right there. Go up a little bit more. Go to 4.3. You see I've put in a provision that says that if you make planning and zoning modifications that are generically available across the city, then Nate will be amenable to them as long as they don't unreasonably increase his costs. I could put another exception from vesting to say, just like dark sky, that says the town intends to adopt a soils ordinance and the project will be subject to the soils requirements.
So
Okay.
fair protection.
I think that, and I would tell, I mean, it's hard to be negotiating online, but I would
Totally
tell-
fine with me.
Okay, so just, Mayor, if you just hit there we go. Yeah, just put soils. That's good enough. That makes it so that if you adopt a soils ordinance, we'll comply with it.
Great, thank you.
Which frankly also deals in some ways with the issue about what happens if there's a problem in the future. Because I assume that if you adopt a soils ordinance, part of the provisions of the soils ordinance will be more detailed studies and monitoring, et cetera. So you've even further decreased the risk of any environmental exposure, even beyond what your environmental lawyer has already put in. And what our environmental lawyer put in because we knew it was reasonable.
Okay, great.
Ralph, Carol, Bob, you have any hard ones?
I have other hard ones, but go ahead. We'll let the others go.
I don't have any hard
Well,
ones, Jerry. I think the point about my biggest concern is also right from the beginning is, can you withstand an economic downturn? And, are we protected? That's been probably a number one besides the EPA and environmental in any of this. But if I compare this to major business agreements, which we do at this level, anywhere from 100 million to $1 billion, it's the time component of risk that you're most concerned with. So the faster you do this, the better off you are in any kind of major business dealing. So you can't force someone to do that. That's dependent upon, the economics of the time, so to speak. But it's only going to behoove Nate to keep this compressed, take advantage of the market as soon as possible while money is cheap, and use that to his advantage to complete this. I don't know. I know in the contracts that we do that are 500 million to $1 billion, we do put some caveats in there to protect us, but it's pretty hard. You've got to count on the good faith of the other business party. In this case, it's our developer. So I don't know how you force that. And bonds are awfully, right now, the commercial insurance market is suffering its worst downturn worldwide. So if you try to go out and get bonds right now, it's a difficult, in protecting any commercial major entity is very difficult. It's pretty much it's a dormant market because of the losses right now in business interruption and other things. So I'm looking at both sides in terms of how we could protect ourselves. I don't know if it's reasonable to do something along those lines, but I'd love to hear what other towns do in these kinds of situations. And maybe we could bring some, best wording. Maybe that's you, Polly, in looking at that. That's my only comment. I'll pass it on to someone else.
No further questions. I think we beat this up ad nauseum. If Carol has nothing else, can we move forward?
No, Robert, I'm not done.
Chris has more.
Right. I'll make a few comments. I know the real estate market right now has been, I don't even want to say right now, at the beginning of COVID and all summer, the real estate market was great. My concern, I think, is that it has slowed down a bit, and with the completion of the Jordan Parkway, we're going to start seeing a lot of those developers around the Parkway starting to build. And I'm thinking that all of a sudden the market's going to start to get glutted with homes. And I'm hoping that there'll be enough people. If there's enough people to purchase them, then of course that creates all the congestion that we're trying to avoid. There's still a lot of issues that I'm concerned about. I think like Jerry, like Ralph, I'm concerned about where the economy is going. I think about all the problems that business owners are having in Park City right now. And at the moment, I mean, if you look at the news, the COVID vaccines, they pulled back on some of them. There's so many questions I have about the future. And I do have a real concern about what may happen to the economy and how that would affect Hideout and what our obligations are going to be. I'm going to state, I think we're rushing this. I know we're under a time constraint, but I still think it's being rushed. Okay.
Thank you, Carol. The only thing I can offer to Ralph and Carol's comments are, this is not a 3-year project. I think we got to think about it in a longer time frame than that. And Nate may want it to be a 3-year project, but my guess is that we're gonna, if this advances, there's going to be legal stuff that have to be dealt with before we can ever touch dirt. There's a bunch of pre-work that we've already defined in here as far as studies that have to be done. So you got to think about this thing if you think about it in an economic cycle standpoint. 2008 was the end of the world, and 2018 was the peak of the world. And this is, my guess is for this thing to be completely filled out and completed, it's probably, you're probably looking at an 8 to 10 year type cycle. Again, I think, I'm not going to speak for Nate, but I just think the reality of, this amount of stuff and growing, so we got, it may go slower, it may go faster, but we can't think about it as if the bottom drops out tomorrow, does the whole thing fall apart? No, it just, Nate's got some money tied up, but so he may have to sit on it a bit before he starts, knocking dirt out, even if we could start right away. So, I mean, that's what these guys do, is they figure out when they can put stuff in the market and move it. So,
what about a provision that, if dirt has been moved and development doesn't proceed as planned, as scheduled, that there's some remediation? I'm looking at the scar next to Town Hall. If we could have restored that in some form or fashion, this would be less of a heartache. The concern is that we tear up a bunch of dirt, and then the economy takes a dip, or whatever happens that causes an unnatural pause, that there has to be some remediation and restoration to that area.
There is a requirement under state law that if you disturb a certain amount, then you have to do some site mitigation for dust purposes. That's already there under state law.
Well, on a side note, maybe that's something we need to be aware of, but dust isn't my major concern as so much as the aesthetics.
Well, Jerry, I would say dust should be a concern of ours. We're next to a repository of dust, should be a huge concern for us.
But I have seen completion bonds or remediation bonds, which aren't nearly as what's just saying is if like what's next to your town hall, like if that doesn't get completed in a certain amount of time, then you can use the bond to remediate the site. And I'm sure that would have been helpful for example, for that site right next to your town hall. So I don't think that that's too taxing of a request. It could, it would be related to each phase or building permit or, something like that. And when you get to a certain level where you're disrupting the soil, then you make sure that you have money to fix it if they don't go through.
I respectfully disagree with that because as Ralph validated from what I said, bonds are very hard to acquire. Language to write those bonding requirements is very difficult to write. That's why state law went away in 2005 from requiring payment and performance bonds and allowed improvements to be done up front. There can be, you've got default clauses in here that says if people fail to remediate, if they fail to comply, then the development agreement's at risk. We could put a default clause in there that says if there's a default, if there's a failure to progress XYZ, that constitutes a default. And then you could trigger the default clause, which means all the entitlements of the development agreement would be at risk for that. That's a fix, Jerry, if that would help you.
That does.
If you want to make a note, Mayor, if you could go to the default section. If you'd be so kind as to go to the default section. I don't remember where it is off the top of my head. It's 7 or 8. I think it's
Just
7.
do a search for default. That probably gets you there.
No, he'll get it there. He'll get it pretty quick. It's 7, 8, or 9. It's not 7, so it's got to be 8. Well, there we go. No, 8 is design standard. So keep going. I'm sorry. No,
We're 9 now.
it's 9.
It's default.
It's 9. So if you just go a little bit further into 9.
Just put in a note here, Bruce.
Yes, sir. Wherever you want to put it, I can make it a provision. I put a provision that says if you fail to prosecute completion pursuant to the town's building permit requirements, I wish I'd turned my tape on, then that's an event of default. And then the city can give, and then the default provisions kick in. So the city gives notice, et cetera. And that would terminate the development agreement rights, and nobody's going to do that.
Okay. Chris, you keep finding some stuff, so keep at it.
Okay, well, can we go now to the chairlift section?
The what section, please?
The chairlift section.
I think it's actually up now. I don't remember where it is.
It's actually up, but yeah.
I haven't had a chance to print this puppy out, so I'm trying to work off of them. There it is. Oh, you just went by it.
Yep. And what happened, and the feasibility, and then
There we go.
there it is.
Right there.
Alternatives to chairlift. Let's take a look at that. If we jointly determine it's not feasible or better use, then the town can be provided up to $400,000 to be used jointly for a selected alternative. I thought chairlifts were super expensive, like, I don't know, in the millions. Am I off base there?
Big
We picked hardware cost, Chris, but
yeah, but also
doesn't
the
include
difference.
the installation cost.
Yeah, and these aren't quads. This isn't going to be a high-speed quad that goes up 10,000 feet up a mountain.
I have two that I've been talking to the sellers about, and you can look them up online also. And one is I think 325, and one was $400,000. Might have been 425, and they go up about 4,600 feet, which is almost perfect for what we have on the top of Richardson Flats Peak, I guess is what someone has called it. And so that's just, that's something the mayor wanted in there. If we don't do that, you guys could use that money to build your building. You guys could use that money to do something else. So
Hey, do you know what brand? I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about chairlifts, but I do know.
I can send you the two that I'm working on.
Oh, that would be great. I would just like to check them out.
Yeah, let me send you those pictures and
Well, and Nate, what was contemplated? Because I know that we put that in there, you know, and that sounds like the cost of the actual chairlift.
that is.
But if you were responsible for putting in the actual chairlift, wouldn't, and then we decide you don't have to, isn't that relieving you of a lot more expense than just $400,000?
Yeah, when we talked to the mayor, it was just, what does it cost to buy the, and I told him, I said, I'm not sure what it, because I have not looked into what it costs to install, just to buy. And so I don't have any pricing on that.
Well, can we say the equivalent of the equipment and installation costs and be a little more generic here? Because even the up to is a little vague. I mean, up to could be $1. And
Well, then let's take the up to out and just say 400,000. I mean, at some point, this is just trying to get money out of Nate at some point, and he might not stick up for himself, but at some point I'm going to and say, you know, you got $400,000 of free money here. It's at some point it needs to be fair to the developer. That's all.
But isn't it fair if he has agreed? I mean, I've heard him in meetings saying, I'm going to put in this chairlift. So if it would cost him $4 million to put in the chairlift, then is it really fair to the town if we relieve him, if we say, you know what, this isn't going to be the best thing for the town. So, okay, we're relieving you of $4 million, but you're just going to pay the town the equivalent
No,
of.
it's not the same thing, because there are other values to having the chairlift as a focal point. For example, we don't know what the 400,000 the town's going to use it for. I mean, at some point, it's just a question of greed. That's all.
well, I take offense to the
Jerry,
use
I
of that
apologize.
term, but
Yeah, I don't agree with that. And I do agree with what Bruce said. The chairlift does bring some value to the lots. It does bring a lot of value to the commercial. But we heard a couple people over in, you know, the Wasatch Springs area that they don't want to see it. And I think that's kind of how this has been brought up. We didn't even think about the visibility of seeing this chairlift from over there, even though I think a chairlift is kind of cool to look out at. But you know, so I don't think this has anything to do with that, but I do think it, you know, I just don't have it. I don't have a number. I mean, I have no idea.
well, that's why I'm suggesting that rather than put a number here, let's put in the, you know, what the reasonable costs are for equipment and installation. And, you know, that's whatever that number is, the feasibility study will tell us that. So, you know, we'll have a number out of the feasibility study, and, you know, we can play with that as well and say, well, you know, right now we got equipment costs on the table and we're talking about installation costs. So where do we need to be on that to make it a reasonable alternative to the chairlift?
Yeah.
Guys, don't put a chairlift in. That's just gonna cheese off all the neighbors. I don't think it's necessary.
You know, Bob, I think they're committed to a feasibility study, and I think during that study, we'll discover, you know, sentiment about that. We'll discover, you know, where the views will be from. You know, I think we'll get information out of that, Bob. I'm you know, I'm a bit of a skeptic about it, but I want to see the feasibility study because maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I'd like to say that so many of the comments we've heard from people and that I have heard personally, that what they really want is the community center town hall concept, a gathering place for the community, as opposed to a chairlift, which would just serve a few people.
But since the developer is willing to do this, Carol, I think we should do the feasibility study, find out how much, it really might cost, and then, try to, if it turns out that doesn't make sense for the community, then be able to redirect that money somewhere else for something like you just mentioned, or, something that the community would really benefit the area, get people there, get people moving there, get people visiting there. And yeah.
Finish your thought, Chris. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry. No, I finished.
I think that the feasibility study will also tell us how that's going to drive commercial in that area. I mean, the idea of the chairlift plaza with stores around it, we don't know how that's going to drive business and traffic to that area. I mean, ultimately, commercial needs traffic. I mean, people traffic. And if a chairlift there makes that viable, and we don't know that yet, then that's something we need to consider. As a potential user of it, I think it's a pretty cool idea, because I like walking down the mountain. I'm not too crazy about walking up the mountain. So, I think the feasibility study is a good idea. My pain point here is crafting the language here on the alternate side to say, something to, instead of a hard number, the reasonable costs of equipment and installation. And then, the feasibility study tells us what that is.
Yeah, and Bruce, I'd just like to piggyback on what Jerry said. I don't think we're trying to be greedy. We're just trying to, I really wouldn't characterize it that way.
Yeah, I apologize. I apologize to both of you. It's just,
That's okay. I know it's late, and I know you've been working your tail off on this, on vacation. So
well,
it's
also, if it's the only other, I would point out a couple of things that the town has asked for a whole bunch of other things from Nate, including all of this acreage, et cetera. And years ago, Chris, I was involved in negotiations with a sewer district to let a client of mine in. And early on the project, we offered a $300,000 Vector truck up front. But later on, the sewer district kept saying more and more and more and more. And the Vector truck sort of went off the table. The last minute on the last vote, one of the members of the board said, well, remember that we were up to now $3 million. And one member of the board said, well, how about that Vector truck that you offered us 2 years ago when we started negotiating? I said, well, yeah, but you've got another $3 million. He said, yeah, but we want the truck too. So my client then gave him the truck as well, $300,000. And then the guy that demanded it voted against the damn project anyway.
Bruce, I get that anecdotal. I think the point here, though, is that Nate's committed to, let's just call it $1 million, $1 million towards a chairlift. And if we don't do the chairlift, he's not out.
It's his call.
How do I say this?
Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, can we think about that? Because one thing the chairlift I thought I thought it made the area more valuable. I thought it made the lots more valuable, and it's not just the cost. I mean, I was hoping with the lot premiums or lot prices going up because of that, and so I think we need to have some number in there, and maybe it is not the 400, but it also, I do think it kind of hurts. And I haven't seen the feasibility study by any stretch, but I think it does hurt land prices a little bit to not have that in there.
Why don't we make you a proposal in the draft tomorrow?
That's fine. That's fine. We go ahead and make us a proposal for tomorrow.
Nate, I think you had brought up a good point about it as well. I think you had brought up a good point early on that there's also the potential for connectivity down to the existing town as well. Whether it's a chairlift or not, a feasibility study is worth looking at. Maybe it's not just town center up to Richardson Flat Peak, but it could be down the other side. I mean, I know there's some easements, et cetera, but I think that ability to offer alternative modes of transportation connecting to the trails is something that you were also kind of looking into. I think there's something to be said about that to reduce traffic.
I mean, the MIDA project area might want to connect up to there as well. That might be a cool thing for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one thing, if you guys decide to use this money for the community center, I mean, that's a huge draw. And so,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a win-win here. But we will come up with a proposal first thing in the morning for you guys.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Appreciate you considering that. And
You're welcome. Thank you.
And when you do the feasibility study, or whoever you have do it, I hope they consider the fact that you are going to have the owners of the property that pay for that, pay the cost to run it, which is going to raise their HOA fees, and that should be talked about in the feasibility study.
Yeah, and you guys actually, I think, are hiring the person to do the feasibility study, or you have
we are.
you have say.
Okay.
So yeah, and you know what? It may hurt to
Right.
hurt the cost of the homes and everything like that. So the feasibility study is a great idea, and it may be that the feasibility, we decide not, through the feasibility study not to do that, and the community center is a better thing to get built. So,
Well, and Nate, it may also be that you change who pays for it. Maybe it's the commercial HOA that pays for it, because
Yeah,
I think
for
it
sure.
helps them most. And
Yeah.
the residents don't actually pay for it.
I know talking to Ann, and then I'll stop because I don't want to keep going because it's getting late. But for you guys, every night's been, I'm sure, painful on your families. But talking to Ann, who is over kind of the geriatric, I don't know what you call them, the senior citizens or whatever. She thinks this is a huge draw for this area because it doesn't exist, except there is a little place in Heber. And so, maybe we don't do the chairlift. Let's just decide that. But I do think we should have a figure in there that is equipment. And so we'll come up with another figure and put that in the agreement.
Thank
And that, if I may, my plan is to take all of these comments, which I'm sure the mayor's going to send me tonight.
I'm going to send you as soon as we get there. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope to have a draft, Nate, for internal review on our side by 9 o'clock in the morning. So he can review it between 9 and 10. I hope to talk with Nate around 10, between 10 and 11. And my current plan is but obviously I need to get Thomas's language as fast as possible to meet that schedule. My current plan is to hopefully have a draft to the city, the town, for discussion at noon. And then if we have to make any tweaks between, say, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd have some time to make those tweaks. If in the evening, if I could have screen control while we're doing this, I can make any changes in real time while we're on the screen if there are any left. I hope there won't be, but I've negotiated documents on the fly and drafted them on the fly and signed them right after that. So it can be done as long as we'll do it on Thursday.
Thank you.
And I didn't mean, but Chris, I didn't mean by that to shortcut if you didn't have any more.
No, I hit all the hard items. Thanks.
You have any soft items then too?
Yeah, please, Chris, you're the next
A
person.
couple of soft ones, but yeah, okay. It's only 8:27, right? It's not even that late. This is not our long.
We have executive to do as well, and these guys have to do work on this after we get
Understood.
off. So
Understood. Okay,
let's
I'll go
try and focus.
real
on
quick. I have an easier one. We've had trouble with weeds in our town, right? Disturbances, developers not taking care of weeds. We have a weed ordinance, but anyway, is there some language we can put in here?
Do you have a weed ordinance?
We do, but we have a weed ordinance. Just follow, and maybe you can just agree to, in the section where the vested laws exceptions are, as we change our weed ordinance and such.
Yeah, that's, I don't have just go back, Mayor, just put a note there, because that would be a default anyway if we're in breach, but if you want to put a weed ordinance, an updated weed ordinance, that makes sense. We can make that an exception to vesting as well.
Okay,
So
perfect.
just go up to 4, Mayor, if you could. 4 was where,
I thought it was 9. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here. 9.
no, you're fine. Just go up to 4, and that's where vesting was for dark sky. Oh, there we
Yeah.
go.
Oh, yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you had soils ordinance, just put soils, and we're after the word soils ordinance, just put and weed ordinance too.
Okay, perfect. That was the easy one.
Okay.
That's it. Now I'm done now.
You're thorough. I appreciate that.
That's good, Chris. That's a good pick, I must say. So,
I'm done as well.
all right. Jerry?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm done as well.
Okay, I will have a new draft. Assuming I get the stuff that I need from Thomas, I should have a new draft in your hands via Paulie and the mayor tomorrow at approximately noon.
Okay, that sounds about right. I thank you all for this. Thank the team working offline between the meetings to get the next versions going. So thanks to Polly and our environmental person, and Bruce and Nate and Thomas and everybody, and Eric and all the rest. Super
Thank you
super
very
job.
much.
I think
Thank
we're
you
getting
all.
super close. So we're going to move on now. We are going to close the public session here, end the meeting, and then the council will reconnect after Chris's mandatory 6-minute break to move into executive session where we're having a discussion of pending or reasonably imminent litigation, personal matters, and or sale or acquisition of real property as needed. I need a motion for that.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Chris,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Ralph. Okay to move to executive, Ralph? Actually, Ralph's not on.
Sorry, I had my
There you
other
are.
mute on here.
Okay.
Yes.
And Bob.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to end now. Again, we'll reconnect, guys, in 6 minutes for Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everybody.
all your hard work.
And Chris, not that we're